Hello, all. So, I'm going to be doing a kind of an information dump on the channel because I'm getting ready to complete aspects of the manuscript. And ideally, I'm going to want people to be able to come to this channel and look at some of these presentations, warts and all, to simply reinforce what is written and what is practiced. So, I'm going to be putting a lot of information that, depending on your level of training, you might find interesting. Again, for the time being, warts and all, not doing anything fancy. However, people who understand the value of some of these presentations understand it, and there are very few of them, and that's okay with me. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk about some training misconceptions that you should understand if you want to really get better at the higher levels of the game. Okay? First of all, let's talk about chokes. Okay? The fact of the matter is, your brain needs a tremendous amount of oxygen. Okay? You don't have much time when your brain is starved of oxygen. Therefore, people draw the conclusion that when you cut the catararoids in a choke, seal them, I should say, that is why your body shuts down. Okay? In fact, the real reason your body shuts down is because your nervous system is alerting your brain that oxygen is being in short supply. So, as a defense mechanism, you shut down into a state where you go into sleep or, the typical kind of a knockout. Your body is conserving oxygen. So it's not technically the oxygen starvation. It is a signal that happens in your nervous system. Why is this important? Because, first of all, it makes a very difference from a choke to the trachea and to the glottis, which are chokes to the airway. Okay? And because that whole neurological system has other points involved with it. Okay? So, for example, your vagus nerve, with all the plexus, the brachial plexus, the solar plexus, and other such things, have similar electrochemical properties and can be accessed and struck so that the person shuts down as well. There are even points on your body that are the tail end of the nerves that can be shut down. Your eyes have pressure points all around them, and when they're all struck together, you can put somebody out. I watched one time my karate sensei demonstrated why a heel kick can knock somebody out with very little pressure. He simply extended, putting the heel into the eye socket by extension, and it knocked the person out. And this is not any foo-foo stuff. This is just the facts of the matter is if you understand why it works properly, you can look for other avenues that work on the same principle. Whereas a choke to the glottis or the trachea, okay, those are strictly oxygen chokes and deal with the destruction of that area, which is potentially very dangerous as well, and literally starving the brain of oxygen, okay? Second misconception, when people talk about being relaxed, okay, the physiology of your muscles is such that you're never totally relaxing, and to relax one set of muscles, you're usually activating another set of muscles, okay? So the real test and understanding that will make you a benchmark for you is relaxing the proper muscles in sequence, because relaxing your muscles accomplishes things that are based in physics. You're working with gravity at all times. And if you do not ground yourself, then power, okay, and force comes back upon you, okay? Now, that's very inefficient. That'll destroy a lot of your technique, as well as if you have little things out of line on your hit. If your hand is out of line, if your elbow's out here, your shoulders tense, things of that nature, okay? So when you learn to relax, you're really learning how to breathe properly to accomplish two things. You're learning how to hit, relaxing the right muscles and tensing the right muscles. And you're learning how to be comfortable with that reflexively so you can do it under a high stress load, okay? That's the good thing about that, is that if it was just a case of, okay, relax, somebody's about to cut your throat open and you have to protect your family, relax. We would have a hard way to go, so to speak. The fact of the matter is that learn what to tense in that situation. In your abdominal region, keeping some tension in that area is very helpful. That'll allow you to start to use your spine explosively and other such things. But understand that distinction. That's the reason for that. Breathing will also help facilitate that process properly. There's no question about it. Let's see, other misconceptions, things that will set you back. Your degree of biomechanical efficiency when you're doing a technique is the most important thing in martial arts for self-defense, okay? For sports fighting, it's not. They're two different. They have a different focus, okay? When you repetitively do a technique, like if you're in a ring and you're boxing and throwing a jab, your muscles naturally start to tense over time. So the way that you threw that jab consistently, you habituate, you get good at it, and you relax. But you also have to always deal with, there's a certain amount of residual lactic acid, and the repetition often will build up in such a way that you're not quite as relaxed in your body consistently as you get more tired, okay? In self-defense technique and things when you're practicing, you should be able to do a technique if you do it one fast and you're not going to be repeating it over a long time frame. You should have an advantage and be able to do it very explosively and very effectively, understanding where to ground, where to relax, etc. Okay? When you grab against a knife, this is my favorite one, okay? The wrist does not control a person, okay? You can tactily put your sense of feeling to work, but you're not going to control by grabbing that wrist, okay? Nothing is ever accomplished by trying to grab and lock a person like that. It's very ineffective, okay? On the other hand, if you learn to control the thumb, a person cannot use a weapon without their thumb. Our thumb is our evolution and it's our curse. When you control that and the person has the weapon, you control the weapon, okay? So when you're training against knives, even though it's a fine motor movement, one of the things that you really do want to train in is controlling the thumb if you're trying to control the person's knife hand, okay? And the difference is a matter of, let's call it the coral snake difference. A Apparently, there are two snakes in California. They have basically the same colors, but the patterns are a little different. One of the snakes is really cute and like a garter snake. The other one is extremely venomous and will get you really bad if it bites you. So the difference between doing this to somebody who knows how to use a knife and controlling the thumb, you see where my analogy is going? I was just working out, sorry. Okay, that's another one. As far as intent when you're trading and hitting, again, understanding how biomechanically you want to be controlling certain muscles and allowing certain muscles to relax and other muscles to pick up the stress. One of the important things to do is practice in a kinetic situation, okay? So this idea of practicing when somebody is grabbing you or throwing a punch at you statically, it's a way to learn a certain vocabulary. And there are a lot of martial arts now, like Sistema and Vida, and there are many arts that are more movement based for a good reason. If you don't do the movements properly, and if you, we'll get to this in a second, but the technique won't be there for you. And here's the kicker. Just moving, just getting into a situation where you're moving, where you're practicing your techniques, will dramatically increase your ability to be effective. Along those same lines, the better you get, the more you realize that moving itself is key. And learning how to be constantly in motion, okay, is very important. Anything that you can think of, a punch, getting grabbed, whatever, fighting multiple opponents, when you're a stationary target, it's giving you away as a target. There are exceptions to that when you might get into a very solid position, when you're chasing somebody back or attacking somebody, but even then you're moving forwards in order to keep them moving backwards. So this whole demo culture, it's really cute, but it can create a lot of bad habits for you. Now let's jump up a level to the game. By the time you really get good, and a lot of the, I'll use the Japanese arts for reference, but even in something like Aikijitsu, Daito-ryu, you practice basic jujitsu for many, many years to get the locks and the holds and to get comfortable with being grabbed and thrown and choked and yada yada, okay? But the art really, you never let a person touch you. You try to make your responsiveness such that they're off balance if they try to connect with you, okay? If they try to hit you, if they try to grab you. That's really what the art is going to teach you at a certain level. Not necessarily against a wrestler or a skilled opponent, but that's a different situation. And, you might want to try to equalize that in many different ways. You might create distance, you might use a weapon, but people who know how to fight generally are a little more careful. But against people who are just attacking you, you never really have to give them a chance to actually grab when you know what you're doing. The minute something touches, you should have them off balance and in a position where you're exercising technique. Shihan Sensei Wigington used to say, it's not martial arts if it's not over in 3 seconds. I mean, your technique should just be there. Okay, it's not a prolonged situation. If you practice that way, then you'll get good and you'll get effective. It doesn't mean that if somebody grabs you that you're not ready for that. I mean, I just explained that, for years you practice blocking, punching, grabbing, getting grabbed, this like that, throwing each other around. When you're young, you spar and fight and roll and whatever they'll call it 10 years from now, Um, but that's your aim, that's your goal, to end it very quickly with really well trained reflexive movement. Okay? So those are some things to think about for your training.